within a minute or two that my left hand trembles. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's 2 years ago. That's not the funny part. When I started researching Parkinson's, I found out that it's incurable, it's progressive, and the drugs stop working. Still not the funny part. I also found out, however, that it's not terminal, it's not contagious, and it's not painful. So I decided I would make a list of things that you can only do if you have a tremor in your left hand, or in either hand. Would you like to hear the list?
Yeah.
Go for it. First thing is, I could be a bartender, specializing in James Bond martinis. All together now? Shaken, not stirred. I could work in a wine bar. If I carried the wine glasses over to a table and they spill, they have been over-poured. I could make road signs, curves ahead. I could specialize in castanets. I don't have to learn how to play them. I could be a violinist because I have a natural vibrato. I could send my texts to Google to improve their spell check. I could work in a morgue. Every morning, I'd go in and shake the bodies, make sure they're still dead. I'd like to talk a little bit about lies our parents told us. I think of these as emotional training wheels. We're not ready yet for them to tell us the truth, like all the teeth in your head are going to fall out. So they tell us about the tooth fairy who's going to reward us for all the teeth that fall out of our head. The three I'd like to talk about tonight are president, favorite, and desk. I named them so they're easier to remember. President. Now when we were growing up, we were told, you can be anything you want to be. Well, it turns out I can't be president. But something was happening at that time that was a lot more optimistic than I realized then. The computer industry was emerging. I joined the computer industry within a year after I graduated from college. My heroine in the computer industry is Grace Hopper. She led the team that developed COBOL, the first business-oriented programming language, and that was the language that I learned when I was in computers. Now, one day I read that she had named the first computer bug because she was working in a computer room. There was some odd thing happening to the results, so she went back into the computer room and found out that there was a moth that was caught in one of the relay switches. So she took the moth out from the relay switch and she taped it into her logbook and said, "This is an actual computer bug." I called the Smithsonian. I said, "Do you know where that logbook is?" And they said, "No, we don't, but if you find it, please tell us." Sure enough, I tracked it down to an obscure Navy museum, saw the logbook, saw her handwriting, called up the Smithsonian and said, "This is where it is." A couple years later, that Navy museum closed and the Smithsonian now has it. So I would think that learning programming languages, and she came to be called the mother of COBOL, kind of like the mother of dragons. That's a pretty good aspiration. Second lie is favorite. I don't know if you were told this, we were certainly told this by implication. We have no favorite children. We love all of you the same. Somebody has heard this before. Yeah, well, that's a lie. There's favorites. Of course, my brother was the favorite in our family. He doesn't agree that he was, but he was the smart one. He was the oldest one. We each had our place. We knew that. I was the only girl. My younger brother was the youngest. And so that was cool. We each had a place in the family that was only ours. And my older brother helped me out one day when some bullies were talking to me on the playground in a new school we moved to. So I went home and got my big brother. Sure enough, he came and talked to the bullies. Didn't even have to draw a fist, but they never bothered me again. So that was cool. My younger brother turned out to be a helicopter pilot when he grew up. And he decided that he would extend his tour in Vietnam for an extra 6 months. Because by doing that, my older brother didn't have to go to Vietnam because of the Sergeant Ryan role. So even though there were no favorite children, we each had our special place. And then there was the time when I was bragging to my mother about how none of us liked English peas, and when they came up in the vegetable rotation, we ate them because that was the only vegetable served. And she said, no, only you. And I said, what? She said, only you. I called my brothers on the spot and said, did you like English peas? Oh yeah, we loved English peas. So there's fair and there's equal. We all had an equal serving of English peas, but I have to tell you it wasn't fair. The third lie is desk. Now when I grew up, we used to have air raid drills because we were in imminent danger of having a nuclear war with Russia. So we were told to hide under our desks. I was telling this story to a friend recently, and he said, yeah, I always spent that time in the principal's office because I refused to hide under the desk. Because like any sane person, he knew a desk would not protect you in case of a nuclear war. Now I have found out since then that, see, we're not at ground zero. Washington's at ground zero. In Manassas, we probably just had buildings collapse rather than being obliterated on the spot. And it turns out, if you're in a building that collapses, you're safest under a table or a desk. So that's lies. Let's talk about nipples. But I'm a 3-year breast cancer survivor. Thank you. One of the things I learned from this journey, I went through the chemo and the mastectomy and the radiation. But I learned there was a new job specialty that I'd never heard of before. Nipple tattoo artist. Turns out a breast cancer surgeon in Baltimore got hold of a tattoo artist in Baltimore and said, you know what, when we do the mastectomy, the nipple is gone, but maybe you can tattoo one on. And so I read about this when I was doing my research, and so I asked my plastic surgeon, I said, so do you know any nipple tattoo artists? And he said, yeah, there's this guy in Baltimore, his name is Vinny. Okay, Vinny. So I didn't grow up with tattoos. In the computer industry, you weren't allowed to show tattoos. I'm told that's still true if you're a teacher. But I know tattoos are much more common now. So I wasn't exactly looking forward to this, but with the mastectomy, there's no feeling anyway, so I thought, okay, this will be okay. Turns out, Vinny is a rock star in the nipple tattoo business. It takes 6 months to get an appointment with him. Women come from all up and down the East Coast to see him. So I called up his office and I said, okay, so what's the deal? And he said, well, you need to send me pictures. Maybe y'all are used to sexting. We did have Polaroids. So okay, so I sent him pictures and I called him back. I said, okay, so what's the story? And he said, well, there are 3 things. He said, number 1, you're small. Actually, I have a mirror. This is not a surprise to me. So I said, so what does that have to do with the nipple tattoo? And he said, well, it would take up 1/3 of your breast. Okay, that doesn't sound very good. What else? So he said, number 2, you're different heights. Okay, so I had an implant on one side, so I have a perky 20-year-old breast on one side. And on the other side, I had a lift, so I have a perky 40-year-old breast on the other side. He said, the tattoos would emphasize the fact that you're out of alignment like a car's headlights. Yeah, that doesn't sound good. So what else? So he said, and you're pale. Actually, I didn't realize they came in different colors. So I said, so what does that mean? He said, well, we would have to tattoo the other one too to make them match. Okay, Vinny, I'm not looking for wet t-shirt contest nipples. So I said goodbye to Vinny. But if you want to see his work, it's on his website. That's all I've got tonight. I'm Carol Covin. Thank you very much.